106.7 KROQ is KROQ. You're listening to the Kevin and Bean Show at 727.
Very excited to welcome Jim Norton back to the Kevin and Bean Show. He is comedian, host of the Jim Norton Show, coming to Vice. We're going to talk all about that. New York Times bestselling author, TV, radio personality. Jim, how you been, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me back.
Sure.
It's our pleasure. A lot of ground to cover.
Sure.
You have been in the news, not of your own making, a lot in the last couple of weeks. What's that firestorm been like for you?
The Anthony firing from Opie and Anthony. It's been awful. I mean, because you work with a guy who you love working with for so many years and who makes me laugh, like genuinely makes me laugh. And then it happens over a holiday weekend and then he's gone. It's literally like somebody got either kidnapped or murdered because like the person that you're working with every day for 10 years is just not to my left anymore. It's really, really a weird. Opie and I are kind of like, what do we do now? Like we just.
Can you catch people up who aren't familiar with the story?
Sure. For the Opie and Anthony show, Anthony was in New York. He was in Times Square, and he really does have a big camera that he's been taking pictures with. And a woman who looked kind of like the deaf interpreter from Nelson Mandela's funeral, she attacked Anthony, and he didn't hit her back, and he's licensed to carry a firearm. He didn't pull his gun. He didn't do anything stupid. But he went home, and he kind of went on a Twitter rant. And, he felt she attacked him because he was white, because she said something to that effect. And he was talking about violence in the black community, and he was in a rant. And it got him fired. So, Opie and I are now going to work with no Anthony. And
taking heat from the fans who somehow think it's your fault or that you're a traitor for not staying home and putting yourself in breach of contract, right?
Right, which we can't do. It's like how many people, picture all of you on your jobs. You work in a warehouse or wherever you work with a guy you love. Say your friend gets fired. Are you actually just going to walk off the job and not make your money? I have to make my money. It's not
of course.
People are like, it's all about money with you. Yeah, stupid, because I have bills to pay.
I have to pay bills. I have to live.
Yeah.
Jim, it's a terrible thing that happened, but it has created quite a conversation nationally about a lot of things, including. Does this mean that somebody who says something that's offensive to somebody isn't allowed to have a job? I mean, is that where we're at right now? Is that the world we're living in now?
I think it's kind of been the world we're in for a while now. Like for some reason, we seem to excuse when people are fired for saying things we don't like. Whether it's, Mel Gibson not getting certain work because he said certain things, or, Donald Sterling. Look what that was the privacy of his own home. And nobody, in the country had a problem with him being completely taken out of basketball, even though the guy's a creep. It's obviously a creep. No, he sounds like a parrot. Like, nobody likes Donald Sterling.
Yeah, there's nothing good about him.
No, he's a jerk. But the reality is, like, you say something in private, unless all of us are willing to have our private stuff released, we really need to respect each other's privacy.
I'd rather not.
Yeah.
If I have that option, I'd choose not.
You have a couple photos on the phone or whatever. Compromise.
Were you and Opie shocked that he was fired?
Yes and no. I mean, no, because I saw the rant, and I think that Anthony was so angry that sometimes when you tweet and you're coming from such an angry place, because he's a genius at having these very, very touchy discussions on the air, and he knows what he can say and what he can't say.
How to tiptoe through it.
And also how to get his point across, because Anthony really doesn't want to come off like, hey, all black people, this is how I feel about you, because that's really not what he says when he rants. But in Twitter, each tweet has to stand like a film, a beginning, a middle, and an end. A tweet cannot need an explanation wrapped around it, because if it has to have an explanation wrapped around it, you're a dead man, because no one's going to get that explanation. The tweet just gets retweeted.
They're not interested in looking for it.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care.
There's no context in a tweet. So if he had stayed off the computer over the holiday and then come back to work and had the exact same conversation using the same words on the radio in context, it would have been business as usual.
Yeah, I think because, usually I'm there with him and Opie's there with him, and if there's three people talking about something, and voice inflection and a lot of stuff there's a big difference between, so-and-so got killed playing, we got killed in the game yesterday, and reading we got killed. Like this, the word kill is a violent word,
right?
But you understand it contextually what it means.
Absolutely.
So we've had a million of those conversations, and it's never been a problem. But in print, it doesn't always look good.
What do you think? Are there still conversations going on between Anthony and Sirius? Do you think there's a possibility he might come back after some time away, or do you think this is irrevocably broken?
I don't know. That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to it. I wish I knew the answer to it. Like, even privately, I couldn't tell you the answer to it, because we're up in 3 months. So I know Ant's out doing this thing now, this internet thing. He's not going to apologize. He wants to come out and do this internet show, and it's a podcast, I guess. And, Opie and I are like, okay, I guess we'll see what happens in October. We have to be there for 3 more months. But it's not like it's a year. It's 3 months. So you can do anything for 3 months.
And then your deal is up after that.
Then our deal is up.
Yeah.
And, and me and Opie have been friends for 15 years. So it's easy to do radio with him and talk. We just miss that guy being there. I mean, Anthony's such a comic genius.
Yeah, it must be so sad for you personally to not have your friend there. In addition to professionally, it makes things awkward and difficult. But personally, it has to really hurt.
Yeah, it does stink to not have your friend there because it really is. He's my friend. I mean, he's not just some dummy I work with. He's a guy I really love. And to see this whole thing happen, it's like. And you know when it's snowballing. You guys know how it is. If there's a problem.
Yes, we do.
You start Googling yourself, and you're like, oh, no, they went. Oh, no, Gawker has it. Oh, God, no, BuzzFeed. Oh, the Washington Post. And once you start seeing
once
those
the
names,
Washington Post is there.
It's a wrap.
Now, there have been people who have come out, and I'm sure you've seen this and you're aware of this criticism, who have said this is not a surprise because we believe that Anthony is sincerely and legitimately a racist person. You know him as well as anybody. True or not true?
No, he's not. He's not a racist in the sense that he does not like black people. And I know him. He comes off with things that sound like, oh my God, why would he say that? But he says things that people are afraid to say. Like Anthony says that there's a disproportionate amount of crime in the black community, violence-wise. And he doesn't say, black people suck. He's like, why is this not being addressed? And it's almost like a pushback against the way the press talks about things. You know how the press, I mean, you guys know from being in radio, white people are not victims in this country. We're treated amazingly well. But when it comes to the way the press reports things, if you guys make a joke, it's going to be treated differently by the mainstream press than if they make a joke on a black station. And that's not black people doing it. That's other white people doing it.
Yeah, agreed.
So a lot of time it's the pushback against the way kind of white people are reporting this stuff and discussing this stuff. So eggshell walking and so scared. But a guy like Anthony says something, and then the white people are comfortable going after him. It's mostly about the way white people are reacting to this stuff that the anger is coming from.
That's a really interesting point, and I think you're right. I think that some white people feel better about themselves because they are able to say, "Hey, look, it's not me. I'm not the one who's saying something that could be perceived as racist. It's that guy over there."
Yes, it's hiding our own ugliness by pointing out somebody else because nobody has had more honest racial discussions sitting with Patrice O'Neal than Anthony Cumia. No one has sat across, and no one could smell a BS faster than Patrice O'Neal. No one could personality profile better than Patrice O'Neal. And whenever I was out doing gigs, Patrice would come in from 6 to 10, and those guys would have 4-hour racial discussions, racial arguments, and they loved each other. And
yeah, that's one of the great things about your show is, I mean, you guys will go there and you guys will do that, and it is not comfortable, but it is also a discussion that should be had.
And this is not saying, look, like Anthony has a black friend. I'm not using that argument.
Right.
I'm simply saying that you don't argue with a guy and discuss things with a guy that mentally strong and that brilliant and be Anthony and not get called out like as a really hateful guy if that's who you are. There's no one.
But then he killed Patrice though, and I thought that was unnecessary.
It was very inappropriate.
I don't think
racially
that's true. I'm not positive that's true.
It was, and we didn't like it at all.
Okay.
Anthony said, "I'm going to kill a black man," and Patrice is it, and it really bothered me a lot.
Look, I don't know Anthony personally, but we have wanted the same thing to happen to Bean, and it just hasn't yet.
How dare you?
I think it would be good.
Dare you?
Keep trying to feed the story to the press. Yeah, I understand.
Well, Jim, thank you for addressing all of that because obviously it's been on our mind, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are also O&A fans who are curious to hear what's going on too. So thank you for that. We're going to take a quick break. Jim Norton is here on the Kevin and Bean Show. He is. You're not doing stand-up or anything this weekend, are you? That's not why you're here, right?
No, I'm just promoting the Vice Show.
We're going to talk all about the Vice Show, which sounds awesome, by the way. It premieres next Wednesday at Vice.com. More with our guest Jim Norton right after this one.
The world-famous KROQ. It's the Kevin and Bean Show.
At 20 minutes till 8.
Jim Norton in studio with us here on the Kevin and Bean Show on KROQ, comedian and host of the Jim Norton Show, which is what, Mr. Norton?
It's a talk show that I'm doing. It comes out next Wednesday on Vice.com. And I always wanted to do a talk show where I'm kind of like able to do what I do, like which is be dirty. You know, I'm a creep. I'm not a good, clean guy. So I want to be able to do my stand-up in the monologue and my act and interview people honestly.
And once a week?
We think once a week, yeah. I mean, we shot 4 pilot episodes, so I had 4 different ones. And it was like, I liked the Mike Douglas and Dick Cavett and all those guys, like, because they would have real conversations.
Right.
It wasn't all soundbite driven. Like now, and this is all talk shows, they have to do it. It's like a quick 7-minute segment. Big point, point, nothing real. You know what I mean? So how was the project? The director was a lot of fun. You know, it's like, oh, shut up. Who cares? Like, I want to talk to people. Like, we talked when I came in about people who won't let you discuss certain things.
Right.
Like for Montreal, me and Opie are going up there. They pitched Katie Holmes. Like, but we don't know if she'll do your show. But there's a whole list of things you can't talk about.
Right.
And I get it from her point of view. But it's like, why would I want to talk to her if I can't ask about Scientology or Tom Cruise? Like, those are the interesting things.
Right, that's true.
How many conversations can we have about Dawson's Creek?
We've had the exact same thing where people say, yeah, they can come on your show, but here are things we would rather you didn't talk about.
And it's never anything boring.
That's crazy. No, it's always the good stuff.
Yeah, don't ask about him when he cuts the lawn. Okay,
Right.
How about the sex scandal? Yeah, he'd love to talk about it.
So as an example, I know one of your guests is a frequent guest here on our show, too, President Dana White from the UFC.
Oh, yes.
What is it that he's an awesome interview and a forthright guy? What is it, for instance, you would want to know from him?
Well, Dana's episode was interesting because him and Mike Tyson did it together. That's my first show is Mike and Dana.
Oh, nice.
So it was more me. I should have asked Dana more personal questions, but it was because Mike was there. Like I was asking.
How do you? Yeah.
And Dana was jumping on the Mike stories because he loves Mike Tyson.
Right.
Like, Dana's like a kid around Mike Tyson. So it was mostly me and Dana just kind of asking Mike questions. And Dana talked a little bit about his. I would love to know more about Dana's childhood, not because I think I'm a psychologist, but because it's interesting because of where he's at now. And he talked a little bit about his past as a bellman and how they would fist fight in the closet over tips. Like, Dana's a tough Boston
Yeah, he is.
guy. People think that he's just this guy who runs the UFC. Dana's like a borderline thug. He grew up as a fighter. Like, Dana's a tough dude. But interviewing Mike, who was in a great mood that day and was so open, and we talked for an hour. I mean, it was.
Is he? I don't mean any disrespect in this question, but is he mentally challenged, Mike Tyson?
No, not at all. Tyson
No.
is extremely bright and completely in touch with what's going on. He's like a voracious reader. I hope I said voracious right.
You did.
I use a lot of big words.
Nicely
and make
done.
an ass out of myself. But it's guys like him and Ozzy. People think like, oh, they're kind of out of it, and it's like not at all. Like sometimes publicly, Ozzy will stumble when he talks because he's dyslexic and he stutters a little bit. And then you talk to him. I went to a gig with him in the car, and he was talking about the Fukushima meltdown. Like, it's like these guys are 100% on top of everything that's happening.
But you've seen Mike Tyson in the press
Sure.
really sort of be out of it and not know what he's talking about and kind of stumble around. And so
Sure.
maybe that's where that perception comes.
Absolutely. And I know why people would say that, but he's like an emotionally... Probably, again, the medication and stuff like that and all those years of fighting and people around him who really didn't care about him. But you sit down and talk to him about anything, and he's extremely, like, in this situation, he was very calm and fun and 100% with it. No, he's not mentally challenged at all. He's actually really
We've
bright.
had him on a few times, and he always he seems to really enjoy his life now too, which is kind of neat. He seems to really be having a good time.
He really does, and he doesn't mind you talking about the old stuff.
Right.
Like, you could talk about the Desiree Washington thing. You can talk about the Robin Gibbon, anything Mitch Green beating, anything you want to discuss is on the table with Tyson. And that was the beauty of this. There was not one thing they didn't want us to ask about. We just had a conversation. It was so nice to not have to go, well, stay
How
away
would
from
you
this.
make a list of things to not talk about Mike Tyson? There's been 100.
Yeah, well, don't talk about the ear bite. All right, how about the rape charge? No, you can't talk about that. All right, well, how about the drug?
Right.
Did you read I didn't realize there were so many drugs in his life. Like,
Yeah.
My fascination with Tyson was when in his book he talked about like baseline normal. Like his level of normal is so much higher than most people's. And now that he's sober, kind of finding out how that's changed for him. That was interesting to me.
I was fascinated by how he got into fighting because he used to be bullied because he loves pigeons. Well, in what world? Mike Tyson loves pigeons and raised pigeons, and then he got beat up for it, and that's when he decided to fight. That's crazy.
Yeah, someone killed one of his birds, and then
Yeah.
he snapped. And if you saw his HBO show, it was really great.
That's just crazy.
He was
So
very,
it's going
very
to be
forthcoming.
Wednesday nights on Vice.com. They'll put up a new episode every week, right?
Yeah. Freeway Rick Ross is one of my interviews from out here in L.A. And my co-host is a young lady named Bailey J. She's quite a delightful young lady that Mike was smitten with, and every guest I have on is smitten with. Bailey is quite a lovely girl.
She's
So,
transsexual, right?
She certainly is, and that's why everyone should be smitten with her. But she's really funny, and she's a great talker, and really. She's just a fun person. The fact that she's transsexual makes me want to marry her, but that's maybe not for everybody.
You know, it's so interesting. Again, this is the voice of Jim Norton here on the Kevin and Bean Show. The show debuts next Wednesday on Vice.com for free, by the way. No subscription necessary. It's interesting. You brought up some names of some past talk show hosts. Maybe some of our audience doesn't even know, like Mike Douglas and people like that. These days, even the talk shows like the Kimmels and the Fallons and stuff like that, it's almost like a variety show now. It's really not much in the way of conversation. It's really come on and dance or come on and be in a video or come on and play a game or something like that. There's very little of what you're talking about doing on the Spice Show, which is just interesting people talking about interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think this is also the internet age, too, or maybe if Cavett or Mike Douglas had to redo it, they would do it differently because of the competition you're facing now online.
Right.
Fallon and Kimmel's genius. The thing these guys are so good at is getting the online audience to be interested in them.
Yeah,
like,
they're both great on that.
Dude, the videos they put out, I don't care if it's Will Smith dancing or Kimmel doing this thing with kids, but man, they get 8 million people to watch something online. For a network talk show host, that's miraculous. So you are competing with what's online. So I'm selling this thing I'm doing as a different thing. But if you were to just go on network TV and have this type of casual conversation with no necessary home run points and just talking to people, it may not do well. Yeah. Online is the place for it because you don't have to break it up. Back in 2 and 2, you don't have to do that online.
Like we have to do here.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, on radio, you guys got to do it. You got to pay the bills.
Right.
Well, I can't wait. Sounds like a great show, Jim. I wish we had some more time, but frankly, Weird Al Yankovic is in the next room getting ready to come in.
I've met him one time. I interviewed him when I did a Leno thing for the Grammys, and he's actually
Bean worships him.
He's a nice guy, man.
No.
What success?
The best human being in the history of humans.
Is
what Bean says.
You like Al Yankovic a lot?
He's the best human being in the history of humans, Jim.
I guess that was a stupid question. When somebody sells him as the best human being, that's the type of crack interviewing you're going to hear in the Jim Norton show.
No, but you can't get anything by Norton.
It's hard to imagine that anybody would say that and mean it, though. So it does require a follow-up. Really? Seriously?
It certainly does. Not to
I like Al.
Yankovic.
No, I like Al. He's great. Is he
time...
the best human in the history of humans?
No.
I don't think so.
I'd put him
what do I say, Kevin? He's twice Jesus. Am I right?
You have said that, yeah.
What is it about him that you love so much? Like, I like his music. I think he's funny. Okay, but why is he such a great person?
Bean?
First of all, it's obvious if you've met Al or watched Al on TV or listened to his records why he's a great person. He's just the best. He's the best in the world at doing something that's extremely difficult to do. He is the master of something that thousands of people try to do and can't do well, and he consistently does it, album after album, year after year, decade after decade. That's why I'm so impressed with him.
Can I tell you what he just said? That's an argument he's had at parties many times because you said that too perfectly well to not have said that.
Yeah. No, it's rehearsed.
In somebody's face before.
No, it's rehearsed.
How dare you?
Question. He may have been reading it. I'm not sure.
Vice.com, next Wednesday, the Jim Norton Show. Check it out.
Thanks,
and Jim,
man.
come back and see us next time you're in town for stand-up, too, man.
Thank you guys so much.
Good luck.